Last week on this channel I said I never use gradients on my logo designs. Well, I've been lying to you, kind of. I don't use gradients anymore, and actually I haven't done for many years. But in today's video, let's revisit some of my logo designs going back 5, 7, 10 years and see how bad they really were. You're going to see my mistakes, my flaws, and also my progression that I've made over the last decade or so. And we're going to work out together why my designs sank or swam. But we're briefly going to look at this first logo. And I say logo in quotation marks because it's not really a logo in my opinion. I cannot remember when I made this design, and I can't even remember what the company was. And that just shows how unorganized I was back then and kind of how I didn't understand what I was doing as a designer. This is when I would start a logo design project with maybe the name of the brand or the name of the company, and I'd have a vague idea of the industry they work in, and that was it. I would feel confident enough to go ahead and design a logo, which is completely wrong. Yes, sometimes you will pull off a magic trick of sorts, a miracle, and you will design something really good. But without a brief and without knowing what you're doing, it's not a proven method. So looking at this logo, what do you think's wrong with it, and where can you see things need to be changed? Well, firstly, let's change the logo to grayscale because your logo design should be as effective or as prominent in grayscale. And to be honest, the grayscale design doesn't detract too much away from the original, and the color isn't really the issue. The issue I have with this one is obviously the gradients. So let's make the logo flat and see if it still works. And as you can see, it doesn't look very neat at all. It doesn't look memorable. And I personally don't like looking at this design, even though it's one of mine and it's many years ago now. So yeah, you should always consider how your logo designs look when they're flat and also in grayscale. And if you do want to use gradients on your designs, make sure you send a flat version of your logo to the client, because that logo might be used on metal, it might be used on fabrics, it might be used on wood, and if they've got a vector gradient file, it isn't going to cut the mustard. And next, we're going to go deeper into this one, but this was a design for a company called InfoCrest. And yeah, I'm cringing myself when I look at my old designs, especially this one. But take a look at this design and try and see what things are wrong here from your perspective. What would you change and how would you improve on this design? Before we go into what's wrong with it, let's try and see what we got right. What things did I do correctly? Now, if my memory serves me well, InfoCrest was a kind of learning or information-based website, and so blue was a pretty good choice actually, considering the psychology around the color blue. And yeah, color psychology does play a big role in logo design and brand design in general. I think that's a check. We can say that was a good choice. But also the logo type on InfoCrest does look really neat. It's kind of informal, yet it's still sophisticated enough to relate back to the brief on the brand. And that's pretty much where the positives end, in my opinion. Let's look at where it went wrong. So firstly, what the hell is this thing here? Looking back at my old designs, I've noticed I use this motif on quite a few of my logos, which just shows you how unprofessional and how unknowledgeable I was. This motif, this design asset here, kind of relates back to a very formal or very upper class, high sophistication kind of style of brand. And it doesn't belong in this kind of caliber of logo, in my opinion. You should be trying to refine your designs down to the simplest form while still adhering to the brief and also the client base. Slapping random things into your logo just because you think it looks good is not a good idea. Also, the layout of this logo is pretty weird. I mean, it's kind of an awkward pyramid kind of shape, and this isn't something people tend to think about. But when you're using this logo on, say, a business card or a leaflet banner or even a website, you need to be aware of how it's going to look and how it's going to perform in every single situation. And so the layout shape can determine if it's going to work in specific areas of design. And so taking my original design from many years ago and having to stay with the kind of concept and the color scheme and everything else, what would I do to improve this logo? Well, firstly, I would change up the tagline, the strapline, to a sans serif font like I've done here. And then I would increase the IC, or I'd probably get rid of it altogether actually. If I was going to redesign this completely, I wouldn't even use this concept. And then also, of course, I would remove the gradient and that stupid motif in between the two logo type lines. But let's move on to another hideous logo from my past. So here's another blue logo, and also here's that stupid motif once more. As you can see, I was just slapping this everywhere back in the day. And if you are struggling with your design concepts or your kind of skill level, just realize everybody starts at the beginning. We just need to perform and progress as we move through our journey of our graphic design career. But first, let's look at what I did correctly. For the logo type, I used an uppercase sans serif font, which I do think works well. However, this specific sans serif font I don't think is adequate enough. And also I think the negative space on the symbol of the M using the screw is a pretty good concept. It's pretty neat and it could go places if it was developed more. One of the biggest drawbacks on this design was the layout. Now this is something that many people really don't think about too much when considering logo design flaws, and that is the technical aspects of the logo. We can see that things aren't aligned, there's different thicknesses of the square around the M, and it just looks very unneat, unprofessional and untidy. And so again, using my original concept and just building on that, using the same elements provided, here are two different versions of that logo that I think do look a lot better and they're a lot more neat. You can see everything is aligned properly, and I've changed up that logo type so there's some contrast going on and it does come across as more professional. And so we've arrived at a kind of somewhat recent logo that I've worked on. And as you can tell, this is already a lot different from the previous logos we've looked at. But why do you think this logo works? Why is it an efficient logo design? Firstly, technicals. It's aligned properly and everything is flush and spaced out equally. This in of itself does allude to a professional design, and it will help the viewer have more peace of mind, so to speak, subconsciously when looking at your design. And I'm actually going to talk about a few things now that once I started to implement my logo design projects, things began to excel in progression and professionalism. One of those is shape psychology. This is something I've spoken about before in this channel, and it's hugely important. Utilizing shape psychology can tap into people's emotions and their triggers, and then thus you can market the logo and the brand to specific people efficiently. And if you use the correct shape psychology relating to the brief, then things just kind of gel together a lot easier, kind of like a starting point to build up the logo from the foundations upwards. One of the other really important things is to remove excess junk, just refine things down to the simplest form while still having an effective design. An example would be that really silly motif I showed you throughout the entire video that I used on several designs in my past. It doesn't need to be there, it's just a random thing I slapped on there because it looked good, or I thought it looked good, but it didn't. And finally, you need to remember what you're doing. You are adding value to someone's business. You're not there to make something that looks good or something that's just, pretty, or look at my skills in Illustrator. No, you're adding value to a business. Someone's come to you because they want to improve their business or they need to market themselves in a more efficient manner. So your job is to solve that problem, visually speaking. That's all it is. So I hope you enjoyed today's video looking at my design disasters from the past, and I hope you learned something as well. But if you do want to learn more, click a video on screen. And until next time guys, design your future today. Peace.